All right, hello everyone. Welcome to Future City 2024. Um, I'm Taz. I'm an instructor with Engineering Outreach. We also have Haley with us, and she's also an instructor with Engineering Outreach. Today we're going to be using Tinkercad to be designing a birdhouse. Before we do that, we're going to quickly go over why that's important and how birds are important to us. Birds are very important. We should know that. We can see them all around. Birds help pollinate flowers and plants and also keep insects in check. Now, in terms of habitat, unfortunately, we are losing, or many birds are losing their homes due to things like deforestation, developments, and also overall climate change. This makes it really hard for them to find safe places to live and make their homes and continue. I quickly mentioned that climate change is also affecting their habitats. Climate change overall, as we all might have an idea, it comes just refers to the temperature and weather changes across the world. Climate change can impact habitats of birds because of rising sea levels that flood their homes, and also wildfires that burn down the forests, and that is a direct impact. What can we do? So there's obviously not much we can, or we don't know if we can do much, but what we can do is we can provide safe places for these birds to safely s- habit and also nest. In that case, what we can do is we can provide them with birdhouses. Um, that just gives them a little helping hand. Today we're going to be using Tinkercad to design a birdhouse. CADing stands for CAD stands for computer aided design. Um, Typically, CADing is used for projects and prototyping, also to test a product and how and the strengths of it. There are different softwares that are used for CADing. Today, we're going to be using Tinkercad. Before we go into Tinkercad, I want to quickly talk about our engineering design process. This is a five-step process that you may have heard of before. Um, so the first step is to identify the problem. The second step is brainstorming ideas that can help us solve this problem. Third step, we take one of our ideas from the second step that we just brainstormed and we expand on that idea. We design a solution, we find dimensions and any materials we might need. In the fourth step, we go ahead and take our solution that we designed and make a model. The fifth step is the last one where we can test and evaluate. So we can take our model, we can test it, we can see if it serves the purpose or not. At any of these stages, if we're not happy with our product or our design, we can go back to any previous step and repeat. So today, if we were to go through the step, our problem is that birds are losing their homes and we need to design a birdhouse. Brainstorming ideas, what do we want to think about? We would like to think about the size of our birdhouse. We also want to think about how we're going to design it so that it can be 3D printed. And what kind of materials would we use? Because with 3D printing, there are a lot of different materials that can be used. So this is something we want to keep in mind. We're not going to go much into depth about it today, but that's something we want to keep in mind when we are 3D designing anything. All right. This is the third step. We would, at this step, um, get a pencil and sketch our ideas out. We want to think about the features we want to have for our birdhouse, the materials, the dimensions, and basically a very clear idea of what we want to CAD and how we want to design our birdhouse. Fourth step is to make a model. This is what we're going to do right now. We're going to be going to Tinkercad. If you can follow me on to Tinkercad, I will. I'll walk us through how to sign in. Um, So we want to go to tinkercad.com. Once we're there, at the top right corner, there's a login button. If you don't have an account, you can do sign up. I already have an account, so I'm going to be logging in. I have a personal account. And that should bring us to something like this. If you're on this page, there is a blue button that says Create. Click on Create, and we're going to select 3D Design. I will give it a minute so we can, if we fall behind, we can catch up. A few seconds. Okay, so once we get to this screen, there is this blue mat. It's called a work plane. If you've not used Tinkercad before, I'm going to do a quick review. I will be using my mouse or my right click button to hover and move the plane around. You can also use this cube at the top left corner. Other than that, any other feature that we use, I will be walking you through it when we use it. All right, to start with, what we're going to do is we're going to use the menu from the right hand side. There's a red box. We're going to click on it and drag it onto our work plane. This is going to be the base of the birdhouse. So I'm going to, if you put the shape down, you can see there are 5 white squares and a couple black squares, and we're not going to worry about the black ones, but the white squares are for dimensions. These dimensions, if you click on any of the bottom squares, are going to be 60. So they're currently 20, and we want to change both of them to be 60. So once we have both the dimensions be 60, I would also go ahead and change the height. So if you select the shape again, there is a 5th square at the top of the shape. That's for the height. And that will be 2. Just to make it nice and flat. Okay, now that we have our base, we're going to get started with building the birdhouse. And I'm going to change the color of my base. So if I select the base again, a menu pops up, and I'm going to click on solid, and I'm going to make it green, just for now. You can choose any color you'd like. We will go back to our right hand side for the menu. So bring up another box, and we are going to lift this box up by 2. And the way we lift it up is using this black cone. When you drop the shape, you will see a black cone, and we're going to use that to lift it up by 2. And you can put that box at the center or somewhat of a center of that base. Once you have that, we're going to resize this box again. So we're going to select or click on any of the white box at the bottom. The size of this will be 30 units. So for both sides, it's going to be 30. And also the height will be 30 as well. And the height is that, oh, I actually made it 3. 30. The height is that 1 square at the top of the shape. Okay. It looks pretty small now, so you might need to zoom in. Okay, so now we have a solid shape, and we want to make sure that there's some space for the birds to actually enter and go into. In order for us to do that, we're going to need to use this transparent looking box from the right hand side. Just drag that out. The size of this will be 25. So when you put it on your plane, we're gonna resize it to be 25. on all sides. Perfect. Um, Once we have both of our cubes ready to go, we will select the red cube first. We are going to hold down Shift and then select that transparent cube. When we have both of our cubes selected, we want to go to the top right corner and you'll see an icon that says Align. So we click on Align and there are these black dots that pop up. We're going to use these dots to align them and center them correctly. So we will use the one that's for height and then the one that goes lengthwise. If this moves your shape, that's okay. Just don't click on anything else right after. Once we have this selected, we're going to also go back to the top right corner again and select this icon. It's called group. We're going to group these two shapes and we should have something that looks like this. If your shape moved away from the base, that's totally okay. You might also see that it's not quite, at least for me, it's not on the base yet, so I'm going to use the cone again to lift it up a bit. And there we go. I can just move my base again to center it to the birdhouse. Okay. The next step is to make an entry point for the birds to actually go into the birdhouse. We're going to use the cylinder, the transparent cylinder from the right-hand side. This is the second shape on the first row. Place it down on the work plane. First, we will be resizing it, so the size of this is going to change to, I believe, we're gonna start off with 15. So it'll be 15 on just both of these sides. When you click on any of these squares, it should be 15 by 15. And the height will be 4. So again, it's 15 for both of the bottom dimensions. And the top is going to be 4. Once we have this disk, we want to rotate it. So if you rotate your screen a little bit or your plane a little bit, you'll see 3 curved arrows. The one on the side, not the back, not the bottom, the one on the side will help us rotate the disk to be in a direction that we want it to be. So I can show that again. So we'll use this disk, this curved arrow to rotate it 90 degrees. Perfect. Once we have this, we're gonna use the align button again to align this cube and the disk. So select the disk, hold shift, select the cube, and align. If the shape moves again, like we said, that's okay. That won't make a difference. I've aligned it both ways, so I can do that again. Align, we're gonna align it center, center. Uh, this time we can use all 3 of the center dots. So we're gonna go ahead and center it. Oh, don't use the last one. We're gonna center it for height and also the front. Once we have this, we're going to move the shape back into the cube just so we can barely see that shape, that disk. Okay, now that we have our disk at with the shape, um, we can now cut out a hole. And in order for us to do that, we're going to select the disk, then the red cube, and we're going to group it again. Now we can see that we have our entry point or a door for the birds. Okay. Um, I'm gonna use my cone again to lift up my cube or my birdhouse by 2 units. So it's sitting right at that base because we made the height of this base 2 units. Okay. One feature that we're going to add now is we're going to be adding a stand for the birds to stand on at the birdhouse. And that's going to be done using a cylinder. So this time we're going to use this orange cylinder from the right hand side. And the dimensions of this is going to be 4 by 4 for the bottom. So again, once you place the cylinder down, it's currently 20 and 20. We're going to change it to 4 and 4. And the height is going to be 15. If you have that shape, we can go ahead and rotate it again to be on its side. So we're going to do it for 90 degrees. And just move it so it fits right under that entry point, that door, for birds to be able to rest on. This gives us our idea of a birdhouse. In this case, this is red. You can also go ahead and change the colors. So again, you can click on the shape, click on solid. I will make my birdhouse brown, and the stand will be darker brown. This is a very basic birdhouse, as you can see. Um, you can go ahead and add a lot more features. You can add um, a section for food, a section for water, but this is what we have for today. We will head back to the slideshow. Alright, so this is the same base that we just made. I just copied my design and stacked it on top to make it 2 birdhouses. You can keep going and have a tower of birdhouses. I've added some hooks there to hang this birdhouse somewhere. Um, this is just a base of a birdhouse. You can go ahead and be really creative with this and make anything out of it. So this concludes our step 4. In this case, we would have to test it, and we can't test it until we print, but we can also double check the dimensions. The dimensions we use today might be too small for most birds. They might be just perfect for really small birds like hummingbirds and other birds. Um, we want to look at what worked. So maybe the design's really nice and we really like that. What we might need to change, we might have to change the dimensions, um, some features we have, and also at this stage we can come up with any other new ideas and or questions. Thank you very much for attending the 3D design workshop with us today. Please remember to fill out the award recognition form that should be linked with your package. And you can proceed to your next session. If you do have any questions, you can also use Slido to ask us anything you may have questions about. The Slido is linked. If you, I'm going to repeat again. If you have any questions, you can use Slido to ask us any questions. The Slido is linked under the live stream on the website. Um, it may also be with your package. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Future City 2024. This is the 3 Design Workshop. All right, so I'm Taz. I am an instructor with Engineering Outreach. We also have Haley, who is also an instructor with Engineering Outreach. Today, we're going to be looking at and using Tinkercad to design a birdhouse. Before we get into designing, we want to look at why it's important for us to um, design a birdhouse and why it's useful. To start off with, birds are very important to us. Birds help pollinate flowers and plants and also keep pesky insects in check. Unfortunately, many birds are losing their homes because of deforestation and development, and also climate change. This makes it really hard for them to find a safe place to live and make their home. We, I quickly mentioned climate change. Climate change is um, just the change and in temperature and weather patterns around the world. This can impact habitats for birds because of the rising sea levels that flood their homes and also wildfires that burn down the forests. What can we do? So, what we can do is provide safe places for these birds to live in. So, this can be done by building and providing them with birdhouses. What we're going to use today is Tinkercad. So what is Tinkercad? CAD stands for Computer Aided Design. Um, CADing or Tinkercad, there are many different types of CADing softwares. Tinkercad is a very beginner-friendly one if you haven't used it before. Um, CADing is used for projects, prototyping, and failure analysis, which means you can design something on these softwares and you can test it to see it makes sense and it holds up to these tests. Um, that's about it for Tinkercad. Before we get started with our design, I want to talk about the engineering designs process. So the engineering design process has 5 steps. The first one is to identify the problem. The second is to brainstorm ideas. Once we have our ideas and we have a couple of things that we have in mind, we take our best idea or a couple of our best ideas and design a solution. In the third step, when you're designing a solution, this entails a more detailed version of your idea. This can um, this can include the dimensions, the materials, the features, and every little detail that you might need to continue onto the fourth step, which is making a model. Once we have our solution designed, making a model is just about gathering materials and going to make the physical model. So, fourth step, when you're done making a model, we move on to the fifth step, which is testing and evaluating. That allows us to see if the product or the design we made makes sense. 1 second, please. All right. Um, I'm sorry about that. So in the fifth step, we're going to test and evaluate, and we're going to make sure that the design and the product we've made serves the purpose. If it does not, we can go back to any of the previous steps before and repeat the process. Okay, so moving on to our problem for today is that birds are losing their habitats. How can we help? We can help by designing and building a birdhouse. When we're brainstorming, we want to think about what shape would the birdhouse be. We want to think about how would we design it so it can be 3D printed, and also what materials would we use to 3D print because 3D printing um, has so many different materials that we can use, different types of plastics for different purposes. We want to think about which one makes sense for us. The third step is designing a solution. At this point, we want to grab a pencil or a pen and piece of paper and sketch out what we want our birdhouse to look like. We want to draw out the features we might have, the materials, anything that will help us make our model in the next step. All right, so this step we are going to do on Tinkercad. So what we're going to do is we're going to head to tinkercad.com, which I will do here. So we're going to head to tinkercad.com and you should be on a page like this. Okay, once we get to tinkercad.com, at the top right corner, there are two options, either log in or sign up. If you already have an account, you can go ahead and log in. If you do not, you can sign up to make an account. I already have an account, so I will be logging in. All right. Okay. So once we get to this page, there is a button that says create on the right hand side of your screen. We're going to click on create and we're going to pick 3D design. That should bring us to a page that looks like this. So I'll give a minute for anyone who is trying to follow along. If you have any questions throughout the workshop, you can use Slido to ask us questions, and that should be linked with the live stream itself. All right. So, the most important thing we might be using today for Tinkercad is the cube at the top left corner. This cube can be used to rotate the plane, the work plane, so it can help us see what we're working on better. All right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with making the birdhouse. So this birdhouse, we're gonna use the red box from the right hand side. You can see there are many shapes. This is going to be the third shape on the first row. So the red box, we can drag it onto our screen. And right now it's quite small, so we're going to make it bigger. So we're going to make it 40 by 40. And the way we change the size of it is, as you can see, there are white squares on the shape. So if you click on any of the white squares, you can see the dimensions. In this case, the dimensions are 20 and 20, and I'm going to change that to 40 and 40. All right. Um, Now it's still a cube, but looks more like a box. We want to make the height a little bit bigger. And in order for us to do that, we have to use that white square at the top of the shape, which is still 20. And we're going to make it a 40 again, like so. So right now, all three dimensions of my square is 40. Okay, once we have this, we will go ahead and try and make some space inside. So right now this box is solid, and we need to make sure that this box has space inside for it to be a birdhouse, for the birds to actually go in and stay there. The way we do that is we're going to grab this transparent box from also the right hand side. The menu we have is going to be the first shape you see. The size of this when you drag it out will also be 20 and 20, and we need to change this to be 30, oh, 30, oh, that's a 38 and 38. And again, to change the dimensions, you're going to click on the shape and any of the white squares, and you can change it to be the size you need. You have to make sure that the height of it is also 38, and the height is top that top white square. All right, so once you have these two shapes, you're going to select the first shape, which is going to be the red box, and you will hold shift and select the transparent box as well. When you have both of these boxes selected, top right corner or bar, you'll see this icon that says align. It looks like two rectangles. So we're going to click on align, and all these dots should pop up. In this case, we're going to be aligning it by height. So the one that's on your right hand side, we're going to click on the middle one, and then also lengthwise, so the bottom middle one as well. And you should have something that looks like this. Before we move on, we also use the third. So right now we have something that looks like this. Okay, I have to do that part again. So select, align, and align it. Honestly, you can align it all three ways. You have to align it for the back as well. Once that is centered, we will use that same, we're going to use a new tool, and that's going to be the group button, also the top right corner, and we group the shapes together. Now you can't tell if there's a difference or not, but because we put a transparent cube inside the solid one, this shape is currently hollow, which we can't see. Okay, we have a hollow box. We need to make sure that the birds have an entry point to actually enter this box, and that will be done by using the cylinder that is also transparent. So we're going to use the cylinder, the second shape on the first row, and we drag it out. Currently, the cylinder can stay this dimension it is, but we are going to need to rotate it. So we're going to rotate it using the curved arrows. There are three curved arrows. We want to rotate it so it's 90 degrees and on its side. So I'm gonna, since we're looking at it like this, I will change my plane a little bit, and we can see that side curved arrow and use that to rotate it on its side for 90 degrees. I will move the shape towards the center of the bird house, and I'll select both of these shapes again. So we're going to select the red cube, hold shift, and then the cylinder, and we're going to use the align tool to align the shapes once more. This will be done again by the front align, the one with height, and also the one at the back. But once we do that, we cannot see that shape anymore. So I can't do the one at the back. So we're gonna do the one, if you have also done what I did, you can use this arrow to go back and undo that one step. Once we have our cylinder that looks like this, we can rotate our cube so we can see the side of the birdhouse to make sure that the cylinder can actually go in the birdhouse. The cylinder doesn't need to go all the way um, like flush into the birdhouse. It can also just be hanging out a little bit. We're going to make sure that most of it is inside the birdhouse so we can have some space. Perfect. So we're going to select the cylinder again, hold shift, select the cube, and we will use the group tool. So the group tool looks like that half rectangle and half circle. And here we go. Now we have some space for the birds to actually enter the birdhouse for. All right. And again, if you have any questions, if you got lost at any of the steps, let us know. We can definitely help you with that. All right. So now that we have our birdhouse, we're going to try and add some features to this birdhouse. So we're going to start off with grabbing the orange cylinder so we can make a little stand for the birdhouse, for the birds to stand on. When you're gonna grab the cylinder, the dimension of the cylinder is 20 by 20, which I'll change to 4 and 4. And to change the dimension, you have to select the shape and click on the white squares. In this case, we are gonna also have to rotate it to its side again. So since the cylinder is standing up, I select the cylinder, I use the curved arrow to have it rotate 90 degrees and move it so it's right by the birdhouse. If you want to move this cylinder or the stand up or down, you can use this. When you select the shape, you can see the black cone. You can see the black cone, you can use that to move it up and down, depending on where your design might look like. Okay, we've got a really basic looking birdhouse. What I would like to do is change the colors of it. So if I select my initial shape, which is red, um, I can see a drop down that comes up. It's a menu with solid and whole. I'm going to click on solid and I can see many color options. I think it makes sense for the birdhouse to be brown, so make it medium brown. And the stand I'll make dark brown. All right, beautiful. We have a birdhouse, but it doesn't have a way for it to be on a surface or to be hung up on a tree or anything like that. What we can do is make some hooks or some sort of design to be able to hang this up. And to do that, we're going to be using the blue shape on the right hand side. So on your menu, if you see, what we're going to use is that donut looking shape that's blue. It's called a torus. We're going to grab one of them out to our working plane. And again, the dimensions are 20 and 20. This will change to be a little bit different. And the dimensions are going to be, let's say, 5 and 5. Okay, now that looks like a bead, which means the height needs to be changed, and the height will be 2. Oh no. If this is too small, I think this is too small for us to work with and move around. So I will go ahead and change the dimensions again and I'll make it 10. That should still be okay. There we go. So my dimensions are currently 10 and 10, and the height is 2. So once we have this donut looking shape, I'm going to go ahead and rotate it again by 90 degrees. So it's standing up on one of its sides, it's not flat down. And in this case, I will be using the cone to lift it up. So initially, when we made our birdhouse, the dimensions of it was, the height of it was 40. So I will be lifting it up just about that. I'll lift it up 30 for 38 units and move it closer to one of the corners. And again, to lift up or change the height of your shape, you're going to use that black cone that you can see when you select that shape. You can move it to the corner. I will move it down a little bit so the height ended up being 36 for my birdhouse for the hook. Now we have a handle-ish thing for one of the corners. We're going to need it for all 4. In that case, we select that shape. We're going to hold Control C and Control V to duplicate. If that doesn't work for you, you can also use um, the duplicate button on the top left corner that's next to the delete. So you can select a shape, duplicate. If you don't see a change, it just means that the shape just duplicated onto itself. So you should be able to move it if you just. So I'll duplicate again using that button, and that duplicated into thin air. I've just placed all the hooks into the 4 corners. They're blue. I'm going to go ahead and change it and make it darker brown for all of them. And again, you can make it any color. You can change the size if that makes more sense to you. But now we have a very basic looking birdhouse that you can also hang anywhere that you have space for. All right. One of the most important things when you are using Tinkercad or any other CADing software to design something that you're going to be 3D printing is to make sure that all of your shapes are actually um, touching and they're connected. So if we group everything together, they're going to become one color. If you don't want that to be all one color, we still can make sure it's at least connected by just by touch. So especially for this dowel that we put in for the stand for the bird, if we don't have that touching the birdhouse, it will not print because then it'll be in thin air because it's floating, it's not even touching the work plane. Okay, we have a birdhouse that we just designed. It's very basic. You can also just use this birdhouse to duplicate and make it tower. The same way as if you select the birdhouse, Control C, Control V, and you have a second one. Now you can move it up and make it so it's like a bird apartment. Um, in that case, we would have to remove our hooks and replace them on the top one again. We can also add a base to this. So if we want to do that, I would like to select all of our shapes, which means you're going to left click and hover over everything that we've made so far, and we're going to group everything together. Like I said, if you group everything, you can move it together, but that does mean that everything becomes one color. So we have our birdhouse grouped, and I would like to add a base. So to add a base to this birdhouse, I'm going to grab that red cube again. And I'm gonna change the size to be six, 60? Let's do 80. No, let's do 60. 80 is too big. All right. So again, to change the size, you'll need to select the white square. We're gonna do 60 and 60. Move it back onto the plane if it left the plane in like it did for me. And for the height, it's gonna be really tiny. It's gonna be 2. If you have that done, you're just gonna place it right about wherever you feel like it's the center of the birdhouse or below the birdhouse. But that means we're gonna have to move the birdhouse by the same amount of unit of that base. So that base we made 2 in height. We're gonna click on the birdhouse and use that black cone to move it up by 2 units. That looks that looks good to me. What we can do now is select that bottom base and change the color. So we're going to change the color to be green, and that's our birdhouse. If you want to go back to having different colors, now that you've moved the birdhouse all together like you needed, you can also select the birdhouse again and use that ungroup button that's right next to the group button, and everything will go back to the original color that you colored it with. All right, and that is a very basic design of a birdhouse that we now have and we can print and use. Okay, so this is the same design that we just made. Like I said, I just stacked it up to make 2 birdhouses. I also added some space for water and food, so water at the top, food at the bottom. If birds just wanna, hang out and eat and rest. Okay, the last and the fifth step of any interior design process is to test and evaluate. In this case, we want to look at what worked. So any parts of the design that we like, anything that we didn't like, so we want to change. It might be the dimensions, it might be the colors, the design, some of the features. We might go ahead and add some more features because, like I said, our design today, it was pretty basic and it was very simple. In this stage, we also ask questions. So, would this work? Would this work with other types of birds? And any other ideas we want to implement. All right. Thank you for coming to our 3D design workshop. If you have any questions, please let us know on Slido. And other than that, have a great rest of your day, and you can head on to your next session. All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to Future City 2024. This is the 3D design workshop. I'm Taz. I'm an instructor with Engineering Outreach. We also have Haley, who's also an instructor with Engineering Outreach. Today we're going to be using Tinkercad to design a birdhouse. Before we get into the designing part, we want to talk about why it's important and why we're designing a birdhouse. So, as we know, like we can see birds everywhere. They're amazing. But they're also very important to our world. The birds help us pollinate like flowers and plants. They also keep insects in check, so it's not harmful to us. However, unfortunately, many birds are losing their homes because of deforestation and development, and climate change. This makes it really hard to find safe places for the birds to live um, safely and also make their homes. Now, I mentioned climate change earlier, but what is climate change? Climate change means things like temperature and weather patterns that are changing from their regular patterns that we're used to. And this is happening all around the world. And because of climate change, this can directly impact birds due to the rising sea levels that can flood their homes, and also wildfires that are burning down trees and forests. What can we do? So, what we can do to help birds is provide them with a safe place to live and nest. The way we can do that is build birdhouses to help birds that have lost their homes because of habitat loss and climate change. And that can just give them a little safe place to live and just helps them that much. Today we're going to use Tinkercad, but overall CAD, the word or the acronym CAD stands for Computer Aided Design. Computer aided design is used for projects. It's used for designing projects, prototyping projects, and also failure analysis. So, failure analysis means um, testing for the threshold where a project or a product will fail at. So, we can check to see if a structure is strong enough um, or if things need to be changed. Now, CADing is great because it helps us um, figure out a lot of things before we actually go into production and spend a lot of money and funding on things. There are many different types of CADing softwares that can get very complicated, but today we're going to be using Tinkercad, and this is very beginner friendly and it's really nice to use. Before we get on to Tinkercad itself, we want to look at the engineering design process. This is a 5-step process, which is really important to engineering, which the first step is always to identify the problem. So if you're designing something, there is a problem that we're looking at. We want to also brainstorm some ideas for that problem for solutions that we might have. Um, then we go ahead and design a solution in the third step. In designing a solution, we are looking at materials, dimensions, um, features that we want to include, and anything else. Once we have that ironed out, we go and make a model. Once you're making a model, that's that hands-on product or something you can actually see or 3D print and work with. When we have our model, we take that to the fifth step, and that allows us to test. Now, this test may or may not be satisfactory. So if you're not happy with your test and your product, we can just go back to any other step that we've already looked at and repeat the steps, and that is part of engineering. All right, for today's problem, we have, habitat loss for birds, and we're going to be designing a birdhouse. When we're brainstorming for this solution, we're looking at what shape should the birdhouse be. We can look at how we're going to design it so it can be 3D printed, and also what kind of materials are we going to be using. So 3D printing is very broad. We can use plastic, we can use chocolate, we can use concrete. What type of materials would be enough to serve the purpose for this design. All right, once you have some ideas, we can take it to the third step and design a solution. In this stage, we take any of our ideas and we sketch it out. We grab a pencil and a pen, or a pen and a piece of paper, and we kind of design and draw out all the features we might want to have. This is going to help us in the fourth step where we're actually modeling. So this is where we go to Tinkercad and we will be modeling and designing a birdhouse. So we want to go to tinkercad.com. At any point during this workshop, if you have any questions, you can use Slido to ask us questions, and we are happy to help with anything you might have issues with. I think the Slido should be linked with the live stream as well. All right. So once we go to Tinkercad, we have two options in the top right corner. So it's tinkercad.com. Top right corner, we can either log in if you already have an account or sign up if you don't have an account. All right, I already have an account, so I'm going to be logging in. Once we log in, we can see a page like this, and there is a blue button that says create. So we're gonna click on create, and we're gonna select the design. All right. So once we're on this plane, the most important thing we're gonna start off with is we're gonna look at the top left corner, that cube. If you rotate this, you'll be able to rotate your plane around. Um, that will help us work with our birdhouse a little bit easier. To start off with, we're gonna grab the red box from the right hand side where there are a lot of shapes, and we're just gonna need the box. So our birdhouse today is gonna be a cube, or it's gonna be a square shape. That's why we need the box. And when you put the box down, you can see all these white, or if you select the box, you can see all these white squares. Any of the bottom four squares, if you click on it, you can see the dimensions. And we will change the dimensions from 20, it's 20 by 20 right now, and we're going to change it to be 40 and 40. Once we have that, we're going to click on the white square at the top of the shape, and that will also be 40. All right, now we have our cube. This is a solid box right now, which means birds cannot actually enter because there's no space for it. So we're going to need to make it hollow. And in order for us to do that, we will use the first box, the transparent looking box, from the right hand side again. We're going to place it down. And this time, the dimensions are going to be 38 and 38. So you can click on any of the white squares at the bottom and make it 38 and 38. And that top square, when you click on it, the height needs to be 38 as well. Perfect. We should now have two squares. So you're going to select both of them. You're going to select the red one first. You're going to hold shift and select the transparent one as well. Once you have both of them selected at the top of our screen, we can see all these tools. We're going to use the align button. This is the two rectangles that we see. So align, and we're going to use all these dots should pop up, and we're going to use the center dots for all directions. So the first one's right here, the second one, and if you still have the third one available, you can also use the third one. Once we do that, we can't actually click on anything else, which I did. If you actually click on something else, you can use the arrows at the top to undo. So we're going to have to align again because like so. You cannot see the shapes anymore, but once you have both of them selected, you will have to click on the group. So again, at the top right corner, it's this half square, half circle icon, and it will group the two shapes together. This allows the shape to be hollow on the inside so the birds can actually go in. We have a hollow box, but we don't have an entry point, so a door for the birds to go in through. Um, this means we need to have an entry. The way we're going to do that is we're going to use the second shape on the first row, the transparent cylinder. We will not change the dimensions, we'll keep it 20. But you are going to need to rotate your screen a little bit. So you're going to need to rotate it a little bit, just enough, so you can see the curved arrows. So it's going to be 3 curved arrows. We're going to use the one that's on the side, not the one at the back or the bottom, the one on the side. And we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. So again, I can show that again. Select the shape, rotate your screen so you can see that curved arrow, and 90 degrees. Okay. Now that we have this, we can move our cylinder closer to our shape. I'll actually have the cylinder go into the shape about halfway, just like that. So you can still select it from the outside, but it's still going through the shape right now. So I'm going to select the cylinder, hold shift, select the cube, and we're going to align it one more time. We're going to align it to be centered from the front and also centered from like for height, so the side as well. And once we do this, we're not going to click the one on the left hand side though, because that will make the cylinder disappear. We don't want that. Once we have this, we're going to group the two shapes together, and that should give us a door for an entry point for the birds to go into the birdhouse through. All right, perfect. So once we have this, we want to add a few more features to our birdhouse. So our birdhouse um, is now sitting on just the plane. I would like to add a base to it. And the way I do that is I'm going to grab a box, the red box again from the right hand side. And the dimensions again 20 by 20. I will be changing it to 60 and 60. If your shape is moving out of your view, you can drag it back. Once you have it 60 by 60, the height is definitely too much, and the height needs to be changed to 2. It's going to be just 2. When we have that, we're going to move the shape right under the birdhouse. Okay. Now all of our shapes are looking red, so the base we just placed under the birdhouse, I'm going to click on it. Once we click on it, we can see a few options pop up, and I'm going to click on solid and change the color to green. Okay. Um, Now selecting my red shape, It's kind of being merged with the base. So I want to lift it up. Because of the height of the base was 2, we select the red birdhouse and use that black cone to lift it up by 2 units. So it's just sitting right on top of that base. Perfect. So um, we can go ahead and change the color of the birdhouse as well, which I'm going to make a medium brown because the birdhouse, it makes sense to be brown. If you want to change it to any other color, you can change it to any other color you'd like. All right. Um, let's add some features to this birdhouse. So now we have a base, we have a birdhouse. We can add a little stand for the birds to stand on. And in order for us to do that, we're going to use the orange cylinder. It's the first one on the second row. This cylinder is currently 20 by 20, and we need to change that for it to be 4 by 4. So again, click on any of those white dots, or sorry, white squares, and change the size. The height is 20. You can change that to be 15. And I'm going to move that closer to the birdhouse. Once it's closer, I'm going to rotate it again using that side curved arrow. So it's 90 degrees and it's almost on its side. And I'm going to place it near that entrance. If you don't like the height of it, if you want to move it up or down, you can use that black arrow to move it up or down. This dowel that I have right now, it's orange and I want to change the color to it to dark brown. All right, there we go. Okay, perfect. Now we have a base, we have a birdhouse, we have a stand. I would like to add, you can add a roof if you would like, so we can go ahead and add a roof to this. So if you want to grab the triangular prism, it's green, it's called roof. The only thing we want to make sure is the dimensions. The dimension of it, when you click on the bottom squares, need to be 40 because that's the size of our birdhouse. We have 40 by 40 right now for the dimension, and I need to move it up. So not to the so to figure out how much we need to move it up, um, I know that the birdhouse itself is 40 and the base is 2, so I think we need to move it up by 42. So we can go take the arrow and move it up 42, just like so. You can also click on that cone and change it yourself and type in 42. And I'm going to go ahead and move it right onto the birdhouse. Nice. Um, Once I place it down, I think I also want to change the height a little bit. So I'm going to make it 15 with that top square. And the color to be dark brown. If you're having trouble having it fit, you can just move it around. It is a perfect fit, so you should be able to do that quite easily. Nice, now we have a roof and a for the birdhouse. Um, I think a very useful feature for a birdhouse would be to have rings for it to be hung by. So we're going to use the blue donut looking shape. It's called a torus on that right hand side again. Drag it out. We're going to resize it to be 8 by 8. And the height is 2. So now it looks like a smaller ring. We're going to do what we did before where we're using the curved arrows to make it stand. on its side instead of laying flat. And then you're going to move it up. So once you move it up, uh, I have moved it up by, let's see, oh, we've moved it up by 54. And I'm going to put it right at the front of this house over here. That gives us one place to hang. I'm going to select the shape and duplicate it. So we're going to do Control C, Control V, and I'm going to place another one at the back of the house so it can be hung in a balanced way. These rings are currently blue and I want to change the color to be a lighter brown. So I'll go ahead and do that. And here we go. We have a birdhouse. For the birdhouse, you can also add other features if you want to expand the base from the side. In that case, you're going to have to use the black dots. So if you want to expand it, I think a really nice feature for a birdhouse would be a place for water. So we can do that by using the orange donut next to the torus. It's called a tube. We can place that down onto the base. Maybe just change the height a little bit so we can make it 5. Move it around. The color's orange. I'll change it to blue. If you want to move it up or down depending on your base, that what it looks like right now. And that gives us a little water well. I can make it a little bit bigger as well because I have the space. So now there's a nice birdhouse. There's a place for water. Um, yeah. If you want to add a second one on the other side for food, that's also a great idea. That way everything can be together. I think that's about it for our design. If you have any other questions about the design itself, or how to add or remove features, you can use Slido to ask us those questions. I will head back to the slideshow. This is the initial design that we started off with. We added a roof with for our design today, but when I made it earlier, I didn't add a roof. I just stacked the designs or the birdhouses on top of each other. I added a little water well at the top. I added some boxes at the bottom for bird seeds. Um, yeah, and you can keep adding more to the side depending on how many birds you want to help in the space you have. All right, that takes us to the fifth step. The fifth step is testing and evaluating. In this stage, we want to look at what worked for us, what didn't work for us. So some things that might have worked with the current design today could be the features we added, could be the roof that we added that was a nice touch, or things we might want to change. And that is very important to look at. So the things we want to change again could be features. We might want to add more features. We might want to change dimensions of our birdhouse because this one might be too small for some birds or too big for others. Um, we may want to add some safety features or even the hook themselves. The rings we added may be not strong enough to hold on to the weight. At this stage, we also want to look at any other ideas we have so we can implement those and also questions. It's always good to ask questions even about our own designs. And that brings us to the end of the workshop. I think this is the last workshop, so you can proceed to your next session, which would be the closing ceremonies. Thank you for joining us today. And again, if you have any questions, you can use Slido to ask us questions. We are more than happy to help.